They don't warn you that love, real love, the kind that breaks your back and empties your pockets, can end with a signature on a piece of paper and a shrug. That I was 28 when I married her. Back then, I thought sacrifice was just another word for love. Madison had ambition in her bones. She wanted to become a clinical psychologist, said she wanted to help people heal, to make the world lighter. In her words, that I believed her. That I believed in her. So when she got accepted into one of the top programs in the state, I didn't hesitate. That I picked up extra shifts, dropped community college, and traded long weekends for longer hours. That we moved into a cramped 2-bedroom apartment on the edge of town, peeling paint, loud neighbors, but close to campus. Rent was tight, groceries were tighter, but we made do. That I made do. During the day, I worked construction, framing houses mostly, sometimes roofing. The kind of work that leaves your hands raw and your lungs full of drywall dust. At night, I clocked into a warehouse gig loading freight for $12 an hour. My spine ached. My sleep was never more than 4 hours deep, and coffee replaced meals more often than I care to admit, but none of it felt like suffering, not when I'd come home and see her, books spread out across the table, glasses on the bridge of her nose, highlighters everywhere like she was dissecting the universe. That I'd bring her tea, kiss the top of her head, and pretend not to notice when she forgot to ask about my day. That I kept telling myself it was temporary, that one day she'd open her own clinic, that I'd come home to a house we owned, maybe a couple kids, that this was the hard part before the beautiful part. That we didn't take vacations, that we didn't eat out. That my boots had holes in the soles I duct taped every other week. That I gave up everything, my car, my gym membership, poker nights with my brothers. Every decision I made was to support her dream. That I loved her, God, I loved her, and that's what makes this part hard to tell. That it was a Tuesday, cold. That I just finished a double 12 hours on a roof followed by 6 hours moving pallets. That I was bone tired, but I brought home takeout from her favorite Thai place. That I thought we'd celebrate. She'd passed her licensing exam that morning, her name was even posted on the state board's website. That I was proud, genuinely. The lights were on when I got home, the apartment was clean, too clean. No textbooks, no tea mugs, none of her clutter. She was sitting at the kitchen table, hair done, makeup perfect, her coat already on. There was a manila envelope next to her. She didn't say hello. I think it's time, she said quietly. That I stood there, still holding the takeout bag, frozen. For what? I asked, stupidly. I've accepted an offer at a private practice in Chicago. It's a huge step for me. I need to go alone. Then she slid the envelope across the table. Divorce papers, already signed. I'll cover the legal fees, she added, as if that was some kind of mercy. That I didn't speak. Couldn't. That I was staring at the ink that would end the life I thought we were building. I never meant to hurt you, she said, standing, but I can't be tied down anymore. That I've grown. That I need space. Tied down. That's what I'd become to her. That I gave her everything. My youth. My time. My health. My dreams. She gave me a thank you and a signature, then she walked out. They say the days after a breakup are the worst, but no one talks about the mornings, waking up without her breathing next to me. That was the first punch. The bed was too big, too still, her side was cold, and stayed that way, for 3 days. I didn't leave the apartment. That I just existed. That I sat at the table where she handed me the papers. Her glass was still half full, her tea, chamomile, sat there like a ghost refusing to move on. That I didn't eat. Couldn't. Every cupboard reminded me of her. Every drawer still held pieces of us. That I stared at her empty bookshelf for an hour once, just stood there like it owed me answers. The only thing she left behind was a scarf on the bathroom hook and a post-it stuck to the fridge. I'm sorry you couldn't come with me. That broke me more than the divorce papers ever could. By the end of the week, I knew I couldn't stay. Every corner of that apartment was soaked in memory. That I could smell her shampoo in the towels. Her laughter echoed between walls like a cruel trick of the mind. That I'd walk past the grocery store and remember how she used to hum under her breath in the produce aisle. So I packed what was mine, what little was truly mine, and loaded it into a beat-up Chevy I bought off Craigslist for $1,200 and a handshake. That I didn't tell anyone, not my brothers, not my folks. That I just left. The road out of Columbus was gray, long, and mercifully emptied. No destination, just direction, west, then south. Every mile felt like another cord cut, another breath I could finally take. But freedom didn't feel like wings. That it felt like weight. A heavy kind that sat in your chest and made every mile marker feel like a goodbye. That I slept in cheap motels, the kind with stained carpets and buzzing vending machines. That I cried in parking lots. I screamed into pillows. That I asked myself the same question every night. Was I really that easy to walk away from? I ended up in a small town outside of Asheville, North Carolina. Don't ask me why. That I just stopped for gas, and something about the air, fresh, pine-sweet, quieter than I'd known in years, made me stay that I rented a small room above a closed-down bookstore. The landlady was a widow named June who didn't ask questions, just handed me the keys and said, "First month's rent in cash, no pets, no drama." I nodded. Drama had already gutted me that I had none left. The first nights were the hardest that I'd drive around the back roads with no music on, just the hum of tires and the dull roar of thoughts that wouldn't shut up that I kept glancing at the passenger seat, half expecting to see her legs curled up, scrolling her phone like she used to, but it was always just me, just the silence, just the absence of everything I'd once lived for. And yet, something strange began to grow in that silence that I started walking every morning, nothing dramatic, just 10 minutes around the block. The mountain air bit my lungs, but I liked it that it reminded me I was still breathing, even if it hurt that I bought groceries without thinking about her preferences, that I drank black coffee instead of the vanilla cream garbage she loved, that I stopped shaving, grew a beard, looked in the mirror and barely recognized the man staring back, and for the first time, I didn't hate what I saw, that I was still broken, still grieving, but there was something raw and alive in the pain, like a wound that hurt because it was trying to heal, that I didn't know who I was without her. But I was about to find out that there's a kind of quiet in small towns that doesn't ask for anything from you. It just is. No honking, no traffic, no fluorescent lights humming above your head, just birds in the morning, crickets at night, and the wind whispering things it doesn't need you to answer. That's what I found in Laurel Creek. Population 3,100 on paper, closer to 2,000 if you counted only the folks who stuck around. A railroad split the town in two, half cafes and churches, half farmland and forgotten warehouses, the kind of place where the gas station clerk knew your name after 3 visits and asked about your truck like it was family. After the storm I crawled out of, the silence felt like grace. That I took a job doing handyman work, fixing gutters, painting fences, patching drywall in century-old farmhouses where the floors tilted just enough to spill coffee if you weren't careful. It didn't pay much, but it was honest. For the first time in a long while, I was building something I could see. That I lived in a converted garage behind a mechanic's shop. 1 room, leaky roof, rusted heater that coughed all winter, but the rent was low and it came with a view of the Blue Ridge ridgeline that turned orange every evening. Some nights I still drove out into the hills just to sit under the stars. Didn't cry as much anymore. The tears dried up somewhere around month 3. That what was left was a dull ache in the ribs, like an old bruise, still there, but no longer stealing the air from my lungs. People in Laurel Creek didn't pry. They noticed the sadness in my eyes, sure, but they never asked where it came from. They just handed me a cup of coffee, pointed to a broken fence and said, "If you've got the time, I've got the work." I had the time. So I worked up by summer. I'd put new shingles on 3 roofs, rewired a retired vet's kitchen and fixed the steeple on the church after a spring storm ripped through. Folks started waving at me by name. Kids called me Mr. Jake. I'd forgotten how good it felt to be known, not for what you lost, but for what you gave. That I started fixing up the little garage too, scraped off old paint, built a new porch with salvaged wood, even planted tomatoes in buckets out back. That I found pieces of myself in every nail I drove, pieces I thought she'd taken with her. Then came the day I met her. It was a Saturday morning in June. Hot already. By 9 a.m. I was helping the local librarian hang shelves outside for a free book cart when I saw her kneeling beside the flower bed, dirt on her jeans, camera slung around her shoulder, hat low over her brow. She stood up, brushed her hands off on her thighs, and looked straight at me with these steady, storm-colored eyes. "You built that trellis behind the cafe, didn't you?" she asked. That I nodded, caught off guard, guilty. She smiled, not just polite, warm, real. "I've been photographing it all week. There's something honest about how it leans. You didn't overmeasure, did you?" I chuckled, eyeballed the whole thing. "Exactly," she said. "It's imperfect, like most things worth looking at." That was the first time someone had complimented something I made since before the papers. Her name was Claire. A photographer who'd come home to take care of her father after a stroke. She taught art classes at the community center on weekends and raised chickens behind the old general store. Said she liked things that grew slow and wild. That I didn't ask for more, not yet. But when she asked if I wanted to grab coffee sometime, I said yes. Not because I was ready, but because something deep inside me whispered, maybe it's okay to try. Her name wasn't Claire, like I thought at first. It was Delilah. That I only found out a week after our first coffee when she laughed and said, "Most people mess it up the first time. That I usually let them." That laugh, that soft, low, knowing laugh, was how she disarmed people. Me included. She had this way of being present without pressing, she didn't fill silence with noise. Didn't probe or pry. She'd sit beside me on the bench behind the hardware store, sipping her coffee, eyes following the shape of clouds, as if time moved differently in her world, and when she looked at me, it wasn't with pity, not like the others. She didn't see a man who'd been left, she saw a man who'd stayed. The first few weeks, we kept things light. That we talked about small-town quirks, favorite foods, the weather. She showed me her photos, old barns swallowed by vines, street cats, children playing near creek beds. She never asked what I was running from, she just showed up, quietly, steadily, and somehow, that was exactly what I needed. One evening, I helped her fix the sagging steps to her back porch. The boards were warped, nails rusted. She sat nearby with lemonade and a toolbox, handing me what I needed before I asked, "You always work like the world depends on it," she said. That I shrugged, "Maybe it does." She smiled at that but said nothing more. She never filled in the blanks I left, she let the space breathe. That I didn't even notice when I started healing. That it happened like the seasons, slow, then all at once. One day I realized I wasn't checking my phone for old messages anymore. Another day, I caught myself smiling at her chicken, Betsy, who followed me around like a shadow. And then there was the night I fell asleep with her head resting on my shoulder while we watched a thunderstorm roll over the mountains. That I didn't dream about the past that night. That I just slept, but walls don't fall easy, even after the roof's been repaired. That it took time. That we had dinner once a week, sometimes more. That she'd cook wild rice and squash or make blueberry pie from scratch. That I'd bring over wood for the fireplace and fix the latch on her greenhouse window, but still, I kept the door closed, the one with all the answers. Until the night it finally opened. That it was early October, the leaves had started turning and the air smelled like wood smoke and pine needles. That we were sitting by her fire pit, wrapped in old quilts, stars blinking down at us like they had something to say. She handed me a mug of cider, our hands touched, just a brush, and I flinched, not from her, from the feeling, from the rightness of it. She noticed but didn't pull away, just looked at me with that quiet patience I'd come to recognize. "I loved someone," I said suddenly, the words ripping out of me like a splinter too long ignored. "I built her a life with my own hands, gave her everything, and when she didn't need me anymore, she left." Delilah didn't gasp. Didn't say oh no or what a monster she must be. She just nodded, soft, like the wind had already told her. "I'm still angry," I admitted, voice low, "but mostly I'm just tired of carrying it alone." She reached across the space between us and placed her hand over mine, warm, steady. "You're not alone," she said, "not anymore." And for the first time since that night in the kitchen, when my wife slid that envelope across the table, I believed someone, not because she promised anything, but because she didn't need to. Madison had imagined freedom would feel like wind in her hair, light, exhilarating. Instead, it felt like static, constant, low-grade noise she couldn't silence. The Chicago skyline had once looked like possibility to her, shimmering towers, glass offices, polished people with somewhere to be. She thought stepping into that world would finally validate all those late nights, all those dreams whispered into Jake's chest when they were young and stupid and still believed forever was enough. She was wrong. That it started small. The job wasn't what she imagined. The private practice she'd fought to get into was polished on the outside but rotting inside. Long hours, clients stacked back to back with no time to breathe between traumas, paperwork piled like snowdrifts. Her supervisor, once warm in interviews, turned cold and clipped, focused only on numbers, billable hours, an image. Madison had spent years chasing this, debt, pressure, sacrifice, and now that she had it, it didn't feel like purpose. That it felt like performance. And then there was Renee, her new best friend, confident, sophisticated, magnetic, the one who'd said, "You're outgrowing him, Mads," while topping off her wine glass. Renee, who encouraged her to move to Chicago. Who said freedom was sexy, that love wasn't supposed to feel like sacrifice. But Renee wasn't there for the panic attacks. Or the quiet dinners alone in her overpriced one-bedroom, where the only sound was the hum of the refrigerator and the looped thoughts in her head. Renee drifted, as people like her do, when Madison's shine wore off, when she stopped getting invited to parties because she looked too tired, when she made the mistake of confessing she sometimes missed Jake. "You said you wanted this," Renee said flatly one night, "so maybe stop romanticizing the past and deal with it." That was the last time they spoke, and now, the silence crept in, the kind of silence that doesn't wait for you to catch up. It just floods everything. She found herself reaching for her phone more and more, scrolling through old photos, rereading texts she thought she'd deleted. Jake's messages. Earnest, simple, "You okay?" I picked up dinner. Proud of you. No one had said that to her in months. No one meant it the way he did, even her mother, once a cold cheerleader for Madison's ambition, grew impatient. You threw away a perfectly decent man for what? A job, parties, you think any of those people will take care of you when you're sick? Madison didn't answer, she just stood in her childhood kitchen and took the verbal bruises like she used to, only now with less resistance. She was too tired to argue, because deep down, she knew her mother was right. She had been loved, truly, patiently, without performance, and she'd walked away from it. One Sunday evening, something broke. She typed Jake's name into her phone. Nothing. No number. No social media. No trail. She called his brother, voicemail, left a message, hey, this is Madison. I just wanted to talk to Jake, just talk. No reply. She drove back to the old apartment. A new name was on the mailbox. A family lived there now, kids' toys on the stoop. She stood across the street for a long time, watching a place she used to belong to, now living its own story without her. She asked around. The old landlord said he left months ago. No forwarding address, paid in cash, disappeared quiet, good guy, he added, hope he's alright. She sat in her car, gripping the steering wheel like it could hold her together. She had walked away thinking he'd still be there, like a spare key under the mat, like home, but Jake was gone, gone without spite, gone without a sound. And it was only now, in the wreckage of everything she thought she wanted, that she realized, she wasn't free, she was just alone. The cafe wasn't much, just a sun-faded sign, creaky screen door, and the scent of fresh cinnamon rolls that drifted out every morning. Locals called it Gracie's, but to me, it had become something else. A place where my name didn't come attached to my past. A quiet corner of the world where I could just be. Delilah sat across from me, smiling over a cup of black coffee. Her hair was pulled back under that fraying canvas hat she always wore when the sun was out. She was talking about a new camera lens she wanted, something about depth of field and softness at the edges, and I was hanging on to every word, not because I understood but because she understood me, the man I was now, not the one I used to be. Then the door creaked open, and the air shifted. I knew it before I even saw her, that perfume, vanilla and ambition, the same one she wore when she was still planning her empire from our kitchen table. Madison. She stepped in slow, like someone walking into a church after years of sin, eyes darting, shoulders tight, and when she saw me, really saw me, her face cracked like glass. I didn't stand up, didn't blink. Delilah looked at her, then at me, and gently set her mug down. She didn't need to ask, she just knew. Madison took one step forward, then two. Then, she dropped to her knees, right there on the worn hardwood floor of Gracie's cafe. Jake, she said, her voice trembling, please. I was wrong. I lost myself. I lost you. I've been trying to find you for months. I know I don't deserve it, but I need you to hear me. The cafe had gone silent. Every eye turned toward us, forks paused halfway to mouths. A couple at the window booth stopped chewing. I sat back in my chair, calm, not angry, not cruel, just, done. You didn't lose me, I said softly, you erased me. She blinked, tears already falling. I gave you everything I had, Madison. I poured every hour, every breath, every damn piece of me into your dream, and when you were finished with that version of me, you left like it was nothing. She tried to speak, but I raised a hand. You didn't just walk away, you made me a ghost, and ghosts don't come back. She reached for my hand. Please, Jake, just give me one chance. I see it now, you were the only one who ever truly, I cut in, I did love you, but I buried that man a long time ago, and whatever you're looking for now, doesn't live here anymore. I stood, dropped a few bills on the table, and turned to Delilah. She didn't flinch, didn't falter, just met my gaze with the kind of quiet pride only found in people who build, not burn. Without a word, I took her hand, and we walked out, together. Madison stayed on her knees, frozen, watching as I disappeared through the door without looking back, just like she once did. We didn't have a fancy wedding. Just a late September morning, a hand-painted sign that said ceremony in the orchard, and a few chairs borrowed from the church down the road. Delilah wore a cream dress she found at a thrift shop, and I wore boots I'd resold myself. No speeches, no big crowd, just her and me, and the kind of silence that feels full, not empty. She said her vows without a hint of fear in her voice, and when I looked into her eyes, I didn't see the broken man I used to be. I saw someone whole, not because someone fixed him, but because he rebuilt himself with his own 2 hands. We bought 5 acres outside of Laurel Creek, not much, but enough. There was an old red barn, half leaning, half proud. I turned it into a workshop, ridge and timber. The sign reads now. I build furniture there, honest, simple pieces, tables, chairs, shelves, nothing that screams for attention, just things meant to last. Delilah's photos hang on the walls, wildflowers, fog rolling over hills, portraits of locals caught in quiet moments. She sells prints online now and teaches 2 art classes a week in town. Her laugh fills every corner of that barn, and God help me, it still stops me in my tracks every time I hear it. The town kids come by after school sometimes, mostly boys at first, hands in their pockets, trying not to look too interested. One of them, Tyler, asked if I'd show him how to use a planer. Now he's here almost every afternoon. That I don't push them, that I just open the door, hand them tools, and teach them how to make something with weight, something real. They don't talk much about what's eating at them, that I don't ask, but they keep coming back, and I know the look in their eyes, that I've seen it in my own reflection. Lost boys with quiet hearts and no roadmap. So I just show up for them, the way I wish someone had done for me, back when the walls were falling down. That I still think about Madison sometimes, not in anger, not even with regret. Just as a chapter that closed so another could begin. She reached out once, an email, said she was in therapy, said she hoped I was happy. That I didn't reply, not because I hated her, but because I didn't need anything from her anymore, not even closure. Some stories end in apology, others end in peace. Most mornings now, I wake before the sun. That I step out onto the porch, coffee in hand, and watch as the sky shifts from gray to gold. There's a rhythm to it, that a quiet that doesn't ache anymore. The air smells like pine and promise. Inside, I hear Delilah moving around, bare feet on old wood floors, humming something soft, and I smile, because I remember what it felt like to lose everything, but I also know what it feels like to rebuild it all, better, slower, stronger. That I didn't find happiness in a second chance. That I found it in choosing myself, day by day, and in loving someone who never needed me to be perfect, just honest. That's the life I built, not the one I was handed, but the one I earned. And on the horizon, finally, unmistakably, there is no storm, only sun.